Today, we're actually covering 4 easy ways for you to maintain/build your client base in 2024, not using social media. So let's talk about that. All right, so let's kind of cover the core principle of all this before we jump into some of the lessons and some of the actual ideas. So the reason that we're doing this and the reason that this is happening is because a lot of times after we get done with the transaction, whether it's even bringing a buyer to purchase a home, or it's like, say for instance, you sold a home and they bought a different home, these are people that are in your sphere. They're your client base. And so we need to talk about some of the ways that you can follow up with them and kind of maintain a relationship with them after the sale of the property. Something to be aware of is that sometimes real estate starts as a sales business. You know, they've contacted you for a job, but quickly after that transaction's happened, automatically it becomes a relationship business. Now, the thing about it is that it costs so much more money and energy and effort to get a new client than it is to maintain a relationship over the course of like another sale. And so one thing it's easy to forget about is that your core client base, the people you have done business for, whether it's selling land or even a lease, or whether it's a rental or a short-term rental, or if it's a home, whatever the case is, these are the people that have chosen to work with you. And now your job is to follow up them for sometimes years, but it's so much cheaper to do now than get a whole nother client later in that area. And it does morph into a relationship and way less into sales. So let's cover some of those core ways right now. Little side note before we jump into the 4 core concepts, and this is the fact that there are thousands of ways of following up with clients. You can get ideas anywhere. I consider those a little bit obscure and very niche, and what the case is, that's great, awesome, and I would definitely search those out. But these 4 are ones you can turnkey right away, whether you're technologically able or not at all. So let's jump into those 4 right now. And the first way I always recommend that people maintain/build their client base in 2024 is having a weekly email. Now, the reason I always recommend sending a weekly email is because, first of all, I've seen the success of it for myself and other agents for well over a decade. And the second thing is there's no other cheaper way to maintain relationship with your clients. If you just want to do the bare minimum, maintain your relationship with your clients, then a weekly email. Now, the way that I structure mine is I do 10% of like my personal life. This has worked so well for me. I literally do write up what I did that week, just whether it's for family or friends or things I'm doing bopping around town. And then I add literally a photo album of just my photos around that I've shared. Super easy to do weekly. I use Google Photos. Maybe you want to use Apple Photos. Maybe there's some sort of like thing you want to do. Whatever the case is, having that personal touch is literally a game changer because it's the separator between you just being a salesperson and a relationship builder. And there have been so many clients that have come to me and be like, oh, I saw that you did this. I saw you did this. I saw you did this. And it creates a relationship when I do see them on, just walking around town and going to coffee or doing this. It is a kind of a conversation starter because they're like, oh, we saw that you X. And so adding that 10% at the very top of the email, little blurb what you've done this week, and share a family calendar, or even like not a calendar, but like a photo album, whether you went floating in a river, when you went to a boat, whether you went to a restaurant, whatever the case is, went to a movie, doesn't make a difference. Adding that personal touch at the top is absolutely crucial. The next section of the email is usually, let's say 80% of it, yes, is dedicated to just information around the area itself. And so a lot of times what other agents will do is just put in just completely real estate information. And you could argue that it's important because you are in the industry, and I get that. But the problem that I run into is that what do your clients care about? They don't really care about a weekly email about real estate market updates. Every agent out there talks about their updates, whether it's price per square foot or days on market or the inventory. Most of your clients don't care because they just bought a home. They're not going to care for about 3 to 4 to 5 years, maybe. What they do care about is knowing you because you just sold them a home. They care about your relationship. They care about I have so many clients respond back to me about just information about the city itself or area about itself. Highly recommend 80% of the email is just news articles and photos of things that's happening in the area, whether it's Austin or Dallas or San Fran or Topeka, Kansas, doesn't make a difference. And you have those news sources that you can find, that you can pull information. I just reproduce that information and say, this is important to you because I know you live here. Super easy. The last section of it, the last 10%, is you can dedicate to real estate, whether you want to put days on market or this or that, or things that just show that you're I would say an expert in the industry. So again, the front loaded is the value side of it is just information about you, what you're doing, build that relationship. Second part is just about information about the area. Last part is just you're expert in the area, price per square foot, days on market, interesting homes, whatever the case is, make that the last part because you just probably sold them a home or whatever the case is the last couple of years, and just keep that relationship going and putting that on the front end of the email itself. And the second easy way to maintain / build a client base in 2024, and this is going to be a little bit of a throwback, and this is for people who don't really want to do technology, social media, emails. I get that. We're going to go retro here because I've done this before. I've been in the industry since 2009 now. Actually, before that was my parents. And anyways, it's been a long time in real estate. Anyways, having a monthly newsletter about the area and about just life and just about the area itself is crucially important. So this is kind of a different way of getting the same information, but in paper form. And so we did this back in Chicago when I lived up there in real estate. We'd send postcards all the time. We send newsletters all the time, all in paper format. And so maybe you're not a person that wants to write out an email and send it often because that's just not your jam. Totally fine. There is honestly intrinsic value to getting a paper thing in the mail. And so whether you want to send it in a letter or whether you want to do it on a postcard, whatever the case is, I highly recommend that you just go the paper route. It would be very interesting if you sent a postcard / newsletter every month to your clients. And now there are services out there that do this, I'm sure of it. If you need to cut the cost down, that's up to you, but I know you can do it a lot cheaper than those things. You still have to do the content. You can print it at your brokerage and then just put it in a letter and send it out. You might only have, let's say you've been in real estate for, let's say 5 years, and you have, let's say 200 transactions. And maybe you can make that sphere bigger with rentals and short-term rentals, or you can, list and sell, whatever the case is. Let's say you have 200 letters. The cost is pretty low, honestly, if you send a letter out every single month. Comparison to buying leads, doing all these different things, energy involved in getting more deals, way cheaper, way less energy. If you have a system that every single month you write out a newsletter, you share some details about the price per square foot on the very end of it. You have more personal stuff, maybe some top stories in the area that you retype out and maybe put some photos. This can all be done in maybe Google Docs or Canva. I know we're starting to get technology here, but obviously it's unavoidable. But just know that sending a monthly paper newsletter is another way of doing that if you want to really avoid that email side of stuff. Whoa. Before we jump on to the next point, every single week I put together a newsletter only focused on the critical things that you care about in real estate. And in this newsletter, we only talk about 3 different things: how to get more leads, how to duplicate your client base, which I am super passionate about, and how to actually close on more homes. This newsletter is truly insights from insiders. So if you want to make over 6 figures in your real estate business and at the same time grow your business, this by far is the best newsletter for you. And also, it is my favorite 4-letter F word. Free! So enter your information below, name, email, and I'll make sure you get that newsletter sent to you right away. And the third way that you can maintain / build a client base in 2024 is actually called follow the property. Now, this is actually coined from the brokerage I work with, as well as things I've seen done in the industry itself, but it's called follow the property. Now, the reason I mention this is because maybe you really don't want to do emails, maybe you don't want to do any sort of writing or newsletters, nothing like that. There's an interesting way that I've kind of seen done before. It's called follow the property. Basically, what happens is that after you've sold a property to a buyer, you kind of have an inspection report of all the information about the house. The age of the HVAC, the age of the water heater, the age of all the different things basically that are made, like a roof, all the things that have a life expectancy of a home in the actual inspection report. What I've seen agents do before is actually go to a spreadsheet essentially, and you can find this more complicated, make this simpler, whatever you want to do, is actually put dates on there from there. And what it allows you to do is like once a quarter, half a year, or whatever the case is, or once a year, is just remind them, hey, your water heater was already about 10 years old. Maybe do you want me to go and find you a bid to actually replace that water heater? Because we know the life expectancy is between 12 years. I would hate for you to actually find a problem when you get back from vacation, your water heater's dead and it leaked all over the floor. Or same thing with HVAC, same thing with roof, whatever the case is. The point of all this is to continue to add value to the relationship after the closing. And so that is one way that you can do that, is just be that advocate for them after the fact and be that professional after the fact. And so this is one way that you can actually maintain relationship, because it'd be great if an agent said, hey, it's been 6 months since you closed on the home, 10 months or a year since you closed on the home. We knew that your HVAC was about 25 years old. Here's my list of recommendations of HVAC that I've used or I know friends who've used that have done a great job and great pricing. So shipping that off to them, that is another way that you can maintain relationship and have, if you don't feel comfortable necessarily going out and being like, hey, you, how are you doing? Or some random conversation you don't feel comfortable doing, maybe you're more introverted, This is a service, a value add that you can do to follow the property, follow the home. So just know that there are many ways of doing this, and whether it's whatever things come up in the inspection or just age or even things they recommend, like they said like, oh, we'd love to have, paint in a year. Put that down, follow up in 6 months, say, hey, I know you mentioned this. Here's a list of painters, etc. So there are different ways of doing this, but just know that if you are not into any of the social media, sending letters, this is an easy way of doing this. It just requires a little bit of data, a little bit of entering, a little bit of follow-up reminders. And the fourth and final way I always recommend maintaining/building a client base in 2024 is this. We're going back in time in this one. Old school, meeting up, having coffee, having sometimes lunch, dinner, whatever the case is. I always recommend buying coffee for clients, just heads up there, but having coffee and just meeting up for clients, shocker. I really appreciate that because a lot of times, sometimes a spouse or sometimes they work from home. And so it's easy for them to just hang out and just like, let's catch up. How's the house? How's the kids? How's this? How's that? I've made so many relationships, and some of my strongest relationships with clients have been established after the transaction. Not before, but after the transaction. It's so simple for you just to shoot a text message like, hey, would you want to meet up for coffee? Here are a few days. When works for you? Even if it says 5:30 or 6 or 7 or 8, whatever the case is. Even just following up 6 months after the fact, 3 months after the fact, is a game changer. They will remember you forever. Honestly, you could probably meet with up then for 3 months, after the fact, 6 months or so, and then not really meet up till later down the road. So just know that. Just maintain a relationship in person is so much even more valuable than an email, than a newsletter, than even the follow-up to the property, meeting for coffee, seeing face-to-face, shaking hands. How are you doing? What are some things that I can help you with? How are the kids? How's Jimmy Bob over with the baseball team? Whatever the case is, just know that in person will always and forever supersede any sort of social media, email thing overall. So if you have that, if you are an extrovert or if you just can get to that level to do that, highly recommended. And before we end the video, I just want to put a little caveat in here is that obviously we want to maintain relationships. We want to be top of mind. We want to be in their sphere when it comes to them selling homes or have questions about friends selling homes, because you want to be known as the expert because you've done the thing for them. I say all that to say is that there's nothing wrong with having a call to action and all this stuff. Now, I do recommend, if you are texting them and be like, hey, just want to check up on this. By the way, do you have this? I always lean away from that until the right time strikes. And that's up to you how you want to run your business. Every person out there, coach, other agent has their own different thing. Regardless, however you want to do it, completely do how you want to. Usually I lean more to adding value and then asking maybe a call to action later. Add more value so I just want to make sure I completely putting value into their bank and then actually asking for a favor later. Sometimes it's like, hey, by the way, it could be through text message, it could be a phone call, it could be an email, it can be the bottom of every single email is, hey, by the way, I love helping people find and sell homes in the area. That brings me better joy. If you know somebody who is looking for that or just wants to ask questions about the real estate market, you know me. I'm just saying that's how you'd say it to them. You know me. I'm super approachable. I'm not going to be hard sales whatsoever. If people just want to know what the market's like, have them call me. Have them shoot me a text message. Have them shoot me a WhatsApp message. Doesn't make a difference. Email. Don't care. Just let them know and I'll be more than happy to help them just like I helped you. Those are how I'd phrase those things to make it very easy and approachable to that. So however you want to do it, call to action is super important because sometimes people do need to be told, hey, I'm looking for business, and sometimes they need the permission to do that. So anyways, good luck with your business in 2024. I'm sure that hopefully these things add a lot of value to it.